Evan Clark had always loved the quiet of space. From a young age, he had wanted to listen to the stars, to hear the soft whispers of the universe. Now he worked alone on a small listening post near the edge of human-explored space. The post was old, with creaking floors and flickering lights, but it was his home. Most days were calm. He spent hours adjusting antennas, reading signals, and recording strange noises from distant planets. He liked the peace. It was a life far from the busy human colonies, closer to the center of known space. One night, while scanning through long-range transmissions, he noticed something unusual. A weak signal blinked on his monitor, almost invisible among the usual static. He leaned closer. The pattern was irregular, but there was a faint rhythm to it. Evan frowned. It sounded like a distress call. He double-checked the coordinates. They led to a small, empty region of space where human ships rarely passed. The signal was faint, almost like it had been drifting for a long time, unnoticed. Evan felt a spark of curiosity. He had heard stories of lost ships, abandoned colonies, and drifting escape pods, but he had never found one himself. Most people in command ignored such faint signals. They said it was probably random noise or a dying star. But something about this one felt different. It was deliberate. Someone or something was calling for help. He started preparing immediately. His small shuttle was old but reliable. He checked the engines, the life support systems, and the navigation controls. Every button and screen got a careful inspection. He packed extra supplies in case the journey took longer than expected. By the time he finished, the station was quiet, and the stars outside glimmered cold and distant. Evan felt a mix of excitement and nervousness. He had no idea what he would find, but he knew he had to try. The shuttle detached from the station and glided into the emptiness. Space was silent except for the faint hum of the engines. Evan tracked the signal carefully. It led him across asteroid fields and past small, frozen planets. The further he traveled, the weaker the signal became. He had to adjust the sensitivity of the sensors constantly, or he would lose it entirely. Finally, after hours of careful navigation, he saw something small drifting ahead. It was a pod, tiny and battered, spinning slowly as if it had been floating for years. Evan's heart raced. He guided the shuttle close and used the mechanical arms to grab it carefully. The pod was damaged, with deep scratches along its surface. Something had clearly attacked it before. He opened the hatch slowly. Inside, curled in a protective ball, was a small alien girl. Her skin shimmered in faint shades of blue and silver, and her eyes glowed softly in the dim light of the pod. She was alive, but barely. Her breathing was weak, and her small hands trembled. Evan's first instinct was to help. He wrapped her in a warm blanket and whispered gently, "It's okay. You're safe now. I won't let anything happen to you." She looked at him with wide, fearful eyes, and for a long moment, neither of them spoke. Evan could see she was scared, but also alone. He didn't know her language, and she didn't know his. Still, something passed between them, a quiet understanding that he meant no harm. He decided to bring her aboard his shuttle. The pod's life support was failing, and she needed warmth, food, and water. Evan carried her carefully, making sure not to jostle her too much. She clung to the blanket as if it were the only safe thing in the universe. When he set her down on the shuttle's small couch, she finally relaxed a little, curling her hands around the soft fabric. Evan gave her some water in a small cup. She looked at it curiously and took a few sips. Then, slowly, she began to eat a few small nutrient bars. He had no idea what kind of food her species usually ate, but the bars seemed acceptable for now. Once she had a bit of strength, Evan tried to communicate. He spoke slowly, pointing to himself. "Evan. My name is Evan." Then he pointed to her and waited. She hesitated, then whispered something soft. It was almost like a song, too high for his ears to catch clearly. Evan nodded. Okay, we'll figure it out together. He smiled gently. She looked at him, unsure, but she did not pull away. Over the next few hours, Evan watched her carefully. He noticed small things, the way she flinched when the shuttle rattled, the way her eyes widened at sudden noises, and how she kept her hands close to her chest. It was clear she had been through something terrible. He wanted to ask her what had happened, but he knew it was too soon. She needed safety first. As the shuttle moved through space, Evan activated a small holomap. He tried to trace her origins, hoping to find her homeworld. The signal from her pod was too faint to reveal much. But he could see subtle energy traces, patterns of travel that suggested she had been escaping something dangerous. Evan frowned. He did not like the thought of anyone or anything hunting her. He had to keep her safe until he could figure out the next step. During the long journey, Evan set up a small makeshift bed for her. He covered her with blankets and dimmed the lights so she could rest. She curled up quietly, staring at the ceiling of the shuttle. Evan sat nearby, keeping watch. He thought about what her life must have been like, what her family might be doing, and what terrible event had separated her from them. Even though he had never met her before, he felt a deep responsibility. He would not let her down. As the stars passed silently outside, Evan tried to make her feel more comfortable. He hummed quietly, a human song he had learned as a child. She tilted her head, listening with curiosity. Slowly, she began to mimic the sounds, making soft hums herself. Evan laughed softly. It was a small connection, but it was a start. She looked at him with a flicker of trust in her glowing eyes, and Evan felt a warmth he had not expected. Days passed as they traveled through quiet space. Evan monitored her health constantly, making small adjustments to keep her warm and fed. He talked to her whenever he could, even if she did not understand. He described the stars, the planets they passed, and the strange shapes of asteroids. She listened quietly, sometimes pointing to the lights outside, trying to mimic the words he said. Every small success made Evan feel that they were slowly building a bond, a bridge between two very different lives. One evening, as the shuttle drifted near a small icy planet, the girl finally spoke a word that Evan could understand. "Mother," she whispered, in a voice trembling with emotion. Evan froze. That word told him everything. She had a family. Someone she loved had been taken from her. She had been trying to survive alone. Evan felt a surge of determination. He would not just rescue her. He would help her find her mother. He would not rest until she was safe and reunited. He asked her gently, pointing to the stars outside. "Where is she?" She shook her head, shaking out her long, silvery hair. She could not remember clearly, only fragments. Flashes of light, shouting, and a sound of metal crashing. Evan nodded. He understood. Memories like that were frightening and confusing. He would need to help her carefully, piece by piece, and track her mother wherever she might be. That night, Evan kept the shuttle steady as they drifted through the empty space near the icy planet. The girl slept for hours, exhausted from fear and hunger. Evan watched her, feeling a strange mixture of responsibility and hope. He did not know what dangers lay ahead, but he knew one thing clearly. He would not let her face them alone. He had found her, brought her aboard, and kept her alive. Now, his mission was simple. He would reunite her with her mother, no matter what it took. As the first light of a distant star crept over the edge of space, Evan began to chart a course toward the nearest inhabited systems. He would ask questions, follow trails, and track energy patterns. Every small hint could lead them closer to her family. He glanced at her sleeping form and whispered, "We will find her, I promise." The girl stirred slightly, and though she did not wake fully, a faint glow in her eyes suggested she had heard him. In that moment, Evan felt a bond that transcended species, culture, and language. A human and a young alien, strangers by chance, now shared a journey that would change both of their lives. He did not know the full story yet. He did not know the dangers, the raiders, or the long road ahead. But he knew that hope had returned, small and fragile, and he would protect it with everything he had. The stars stretched endlessly around them, silent witnesses to the beginning of a mission that would test courage, patience, and trust. For Evan, the quiet of space had changed forever. He was no longer just a listener. He was a protector, a guide, and perhaps the only chance for a small girl to be reunited with the one person who mattered most in the universe, her mother. And so, with determination in his heart and a small alien girl resting safely aboard his shuttle, Evan Clark began the journey that would become more than just a mission. It would become a story of bravery, hope, and the quiet power of humans who cared deeply, even when no one else seemed to notice. Evan Clark spent the next few days carefully plotting their course through space. The young alien girl, Lyra, had begun to show small signs of strength. She could sit upright for longer periods and even manage small movements around the shuttle. Her glowing blue eyes followed every action Evan took, watching him with curiosity and caution. He had learned that patience was important. Any sudden movements, loud noises, or harsh words frightened her. Evan tried to teach her a few more human words, pointing to simple objects. "Water," he said, holding a cup. "Food," he said, pointing to a small bar. Lyra repeated the sounds softly, unsure at first, then a little louder as confidence grew. Each small success brought a smile to Evan's face. Even in the vast loneliness of space, he felt a connection forming. She had no one else, and he would not let her feel alone again. They moved cautiously. The signal that led them to Lyra's pod had disappeared, but Evan had noticed subtle energy traces from the pod. He believed they could follow those traces to find where she had come from. He carefully scanned the space around them, noting small energy patterns in the distance. They were faint, almost undetectable, but he could sense them with his instruments. It was like following footprints in the sand, except the footprints were made of light and energy drifting through space. "Do you remember?" he asked softly, hoping not to scare her. "Anything about your home?" Lyra shook her head slowly. "Shadows, loud, metal," she whispered in her soft, alien voice. Her small hands trembled as she tried to explain. Evan nodded, understanding the fragments. She remembered the attack, but only in pieces. He did not push her further. Memories like that came slowly and could be terrifying. He would let her tell the story in her own time. The journey was long. Days passed in silence, except for the hum of the shuttle and the occasional words exchanged between them. Sometimes, when Lyra fell asleep, Evan would check the navigation systems, adjust course, or repair minor faults. Even the smallest problem could be dangerous in deep space. He could not risk their safety. One night, while scanning a field of small asteroids, Evan noticed another energy spike. It was similar to the patterns from Lyra's pod, but stronger. His heart raced. Could this be her mother? He adjusted the sensors, zooming in on the source. It appeared to be a small ship, damaged and barely moving, but alive. He held his breath. The coordinates were far from any human system. This was definitely not a friendly place. Lyra stirred as he made the adjustments. She pointed toward the screen, eyes wide. Evan could not tell if she recognized something, but she seemed drawn to the lights. "Mother?" she whispered. Her voice trembled with hope. Evan nodded gently. "Maybe. We have to be careful. We do not know what is there yet." He guided the shuttle closer, moving slowly among the rocks and debris. The damaged ship floated silently, its hull scarred by fire and impact. Evan scanned for life signs. One faint signal blinked weakly. He frowned, feeling a mix of hope and fear. Whoever was inside could be alive, but they might also be hurt or trapped. Evan prepared the shuttle for a safe approach. He activated the mechanical arms and external lights, checking for danger. Lyra clutched his arm lightly. "Don't let them hurt her," she whispered. Evan squeezed her hand gently. "I won't. I promise." Her eyes glimmered, and she pressed closer, trusting him completely. The shuttle moved slowly alongside the damaged ship. Evan found an entrance and opened it carefully. The interior was dark and silent. He activated the lights and peered inside. Broken metal and scorched walls were everywhere. He called softly, "Hello? Is anyone there?" A weak voice answered, almost a whisper. "Lyra?" Evan froze. The voice was human to him, but it carried a sound of hope and fear. He guided Lyra closer, keeping her low to the floor. The voice came again, this time stronger. "Lyra, my daughter." Tears welled in Lyra's eyes. She ran forward, ignoring Evan for a moment, and called out, "Mother!" From the shadows, a figure moved slowly. It was a woman, wounded and exhausted, her blue skin dim and her eyes tired. Her movements were careful, but when she saw Lyra, she dropped to her knees, reaching out. Evan quickly stepped forward, helping both of them. Lyra ran into her mother's arms, clinging tightly. The woman, Sarah, held her daughter close, tears streaking her face. Evan took a moment to scan the area. The ship was unstable. Fires had burned in some sections, and the metal floors were warped. He could not leave them here for long. He would have to act fast. "Stay close," he said to both of them. "We need to get out of here." Sarah nodded weakly, still holding Lyra. Evan activated the shuttle's external lights. He guided them carefully through the wreckage, using the mechanical arms to steady loose debris. The moment felt like walking on a tightrope, balancing safety and speed. One wrong step could be disastrous. Once they reached the shuttle, Evan helped Sarah inside. Lyra stayed close, pressing herself to her mother's side. Evan activated the doors and began the slow journey away from the wrecked ship. Behind them, sparks and flames lit the darkness of space. He could see loose panels drifting in the void, and he knew the ship would not last long. Sarah looked at Evan, her eyes filled with a mixture of gratitude and disbelief. "You saved us," she said in a soft, raspy voice. How can I ever repay you?" Evan shook his head. "You don't have to. I did what was right." He smiled gently, though his body was tense. There was no time for relief yet. "We need to make sure you are both safe." The journey back was slow and careful. Sarah's wounds were severe, and Evan did his best to treat them. He used supplies from the shuttle's medkit, cleaning burns, applying bandages, and giving them water. Lyra stayed at her mother's side, whispering softly, and Saira responded with gentle words, both in their alien language. The mother-daughter bond was strong, and it warmed Evan's heart. During the long hours, Evan talked to them when he could. He described the stars, the planets they passed, and the calm beauty of space. Lyra listened carefully, repeating some words in her own way. Sarah tried to rest, but occasionally looked at Evan as if asking silently whether they would survive this journey. Evan reassured them both quietly, though he did not let his own fears show. He had promised to protect them, and he would keep that promise no matter what. They needed more than just rest. Evan had to find a place where they could be truly safe. He accessed long-range communication arrays to contact nearby human stations, asking for any information that might help. The systems were cautious. Humans rarely intervened in unknown alien regions. Some refused to help, citing danger or lack of jurisdiction. Evan did not argue. He knew he could not rely on anyone else. He had to protect them himself. Night after night, Lyra slept beside her mother. She whispered softly, "Mother, we are safe now." Syra held her hand, her own breathing steadying. Evan watched them with care. Every small sign of recovery made him feel that he was doing something meaningful. Even in the cold emptiness of space, life could be precious and fragile. One morning, as they passed near a small asteroid belt, Syra spoke. Her voice was still weak, but her tone was clearer. "Evan, why did you help us? Humans usually avoid alien lives." Evan shrugged gently. "Because it was right. Because no one should be alone. Because she is your daughter." He looked at Lyra. "And I would do it again, if I had to." Syra's eyes filled with tears again. She reached out to touch his hand. A gesture of trust and gratitude. "You are not like others. You have a heart." Evan smiled softly. He felt the weight of their trust, the responsibility that had grown heavier as he guided them through the dangers of space. But he also felt pride. He had found them, kept them alive, and now had a chance to reunite them fully with their people. The journey continued. Evan tracked energy signatures, scanning for any sign of the raiders who had attacked them. They had to be careful. Even though Syra and Lyra were safe for now, the raiders might still be nearby. He taught Lyra how to stay low and quiet in the shuttle, and he prepared simple defenses. He was not a soldier, but he had quick hands, clever thinking, and determination. That was enough for now. Through endless hours of scanning, navigating, and tending to wounds, Evan began to feel the first signs of hope. They were together. Syra was alive, Lyra was alive, and he had a plan. He would lead them to safety, then help them reconnect with their people. Nothing else mattered. For the first time since finding the pod, Evan allowed himself a small breath of relief. The danger was not over, but the most important part of the mission had succeeded. They were reunited, even if only temporarily, and the bond between mother and daughter grew stronger with every passing hour. And Evan knew, deep in his heart, that he would not stop until they were truly safe, truly home, and truly free from the horrors that had separated them. Evan had spent days guiding Syra and Lyra through space, keeping them safe and helping them recover, but he knew the danger was not over. The raiders who had attacked them were still out there. He could feel it in the patterns of debris drifting through space, in the faint energy traces that lingered after the escape pod. They had to be careful. One wrong move, and the raiders could catch them again. Evan studied the sensors carefully. There was a small sector ahead, full of abandoned stations and wrecked ships. It was risky, but it might offer a path to escape the raiders. He explained the plan to Syra and Lyra, keeping his voice calm. "We will move slowly. Stay close. Trust me." Lyra nodded and held her mother's hand tightly. Sarah's eyes were tired, but she gave a small smile, showing that she trusted Evan as much as her daughter did. The shuttle moved cautiously into the abandoned sector. Shadows of destroyed ships floated silently. Broken hulls drifting with the slow pull of gravity from nearby asteroids. Evan's hands worked quickly at the controls, scanning every corner for energy traces. Lyra leaned forward, peeking at the monitors. "Are they here?" she whispered. Evan shook his head. "Not yet. But we have to be ready." He adjusted the shields and prepared the ship's simple defenses. They had no weapons, but they could use the shuttle's engines and tools to block or slow anyone who tried to attack. It was not much, but Evan was clever. He had to be. As they moved deeper into the sector, faint signals began to appear. Evan's heart pounded. These were not friendly signals. Small energy readings, irregular and fast-moving, suggested that raiders were nearby. He tightened his grip on the controls. "They are close. We must hide." He guided the shuttle toward a cluster of broken ships. They fit snugly between the wrecks, using the debris as cover. Lyra pressed herself against her mother, and Sarah held her close, both of them trembling slightly. Evan whispered, "Stay still. Don't move." The raiders passed slowly, scanning with long-range sensors. Evan watched every movement, every flash of energy, and timed their breathing carefully. After what felt like hours, the raiders moved on. Evan waited several minutes more before moving the shuttle out of hiding. "That was close," he muttered. Lyra's small hand found his. "You saved us again," she whispered. Evan smiled gently. "We have to keep moving. We're not safe yet." The next day, they followed a faint signal that might lead to Sarah's homeworld. Evan had studied maps, energy traces, and old records. He believed that following these patterns would take them closer to her people. The journey was long, and the shuttle was small, but Evan remained focused. He kept Syra and Lyra occupied, telling stories of the stars, showing them distant planets, and pointing out strange comets. The small moments of wonder helped them forget fear, if only for a little while. One evening, while passing through a field of icy asteroids, Evan detected another energy reading. This one was stronger and moving fast. He frowned. The raiders had discovered their path. He had anticipated that they might be tracking him, but the speed of this signal suggested they were closing in quickly. "We need a plan," he said to himself. He gathered Syra and Lyra. "They're coming," he said softly. "We may have to fight smart, not fight strong. I will do my best to keep you safe, but we need to stay clever." Lyra looked at him, eyes wide, then clung to her mother. Sarah nodded, her jaw tight. "We trust you," she said. Evan prepared the shuttle. He checked the engines, shields, and mechanical arms. He identified weak points in the wrecked ships around them, places where they could hide or block the raiders. He devised a simple plan. They would use the debris to confuse the raiders, forcing them to waste energy and time, giving Evan a chance to escape. It was risky, but it was their only chance. As the raiders approached, their small ships appearing like dark shadows against the icy field, Evan guided the shuttle carefully. The first raider ship flew past, scanning quickly. Evan maneuvered the shuttle behind a broken hull, keeping just out of view. Another raider passed. Slightly slower, giving Evan an idea. He adjusted the shuttle's direction and used a mechanical arm to push a piece of metal debris into the path of the raider. The raider collided with the debris. Sparks flew and the ship veered wildly. Evan's heart raced. Lyra gasped in surprise. "It worked," she whispered. Evan nodded. "We're not safe yet, but it slowed them down." The raiders regrouped, trying to find the shuttle. Evan moved quickly, weaving between broken hulls, using the shadows to hide and setting traps with debris. Every maneuver required patience and skill. Syra and Lyra stayed low, holding on to each other, trusting Evan completely. Finally, after tense hours of careful navigation, Evan saw a small opening in the asteroid field. It was narrow, but it led to open space. He guided the shuttle through, moving fast to escape the raiders. Behind them, the raiders continued searching but could not follow quickly. Evan felt relief, but he did not relax completely. The danger was not gone, it was only delayed. Once they were clear of the asteroid field, Evan allowed himself to breathe more freely. Lyra hugged her mother tightly, both of them safe for the moment. Syra looked at Evan with deep gratitude. "You saved us again," she said softly. "How can we ever thank you?" Evan shook his head. "No thanks needed. Just stay safe. That is enough." He smiled gently. They were tired, but alive. That was all that mattered. Over the next few days, Evan focused on finding a safe path to Syra's homeworld. He studied energy patterns, old navigation charts, and small signals from distant outposts. The journey was long and filled with tension. Every unusual reading or weak energy pulse made him pause and scan carefully. He had learned to trust his instincts. Space was quiet, but danger could hide anywhere. During quiet moments, Evan talked to Sarah and Lyra, trying to make them feel safe. He described the stars, the planets, and the comets they passed. Lyra began to mimic human words more confidently, repeating the names of colors and objects. Syra rested, regaining strength slowly, often watching Evan with quiet admiration. She knew that without him, they would never have survived the raiders. One night, while Evan adjusted the navigation systems, Lyra pointed to a small glowing point on the monitor. "Home," she whispered. Evan studied the coordinates. The energy readings matched the patterns of her people's homeworld. It was distant but reachable. His heart leaped. They were close. "We are close," he said softly. "Soon you will be home." Lyra's eyes glimmered with hope, and she pressed her hand to Syra's. Syra smiled weakly but nodded. "Thank you, Evan, for everything." Evan felt a warmth in his chest. This was why he had taken the risk, why he had ignored human commands and ventured into unknown space. Life was precious, and sometimes a single person could make a difference. He had made a difference for Lyra and Syra. But even as hope grew, Evan remained cautious. The raiders might still be tracking them. He prepared the shuttle for any sudden dangers, keeping shields ready and engines primed. He taught Lyra simple ways to stay quiet and still during emergencies. Syra watched him with a mix of concern and trust, realizing that Evan's clever thinking had already saved them more than once. The days passed slowly, filled with careful navigation and quiet moments of recovery. Each sunrise in space, each distant star, reminded them of how far they had come. Evan could see the bond between mother and daughter growing stronger, and he felt pride in helping them survive. Finally, as they approached the outer borders of her home system, Evan saw faint lights in the distance. Small outposts, ships, and structures marked the inhabited planet. He guided the shuttle carefully, making sure they remained unnoticed until they reached safety. When the first clear view of the planet appeared, Lyra gasped. Her glowing eyes filled with wonder. Syra's hand trembled as she reached for the controls, though Evan stopped her gently. "We are almost there. Stay with me." Lyra clutched her mother's hand tightly, and they followed Evan's lead. Evan knew the journey was not over. The final approach would require caution. They had survived space, debris, and raiders, but this was the moment when danger could appear again. He adjusted shields, monitored energy readings, and guided the shuttle slowly toward the planet. As the planet grew larger, filled with color and life, Evan felt hope stronger than fear. They had made it this far. They were alive. The bond between mother and daughter was safe, and his mission was almost complete. He had come so far, faced so many dangers, and done what many would have thought impossible. And still, he remained vigilant. Because in space, nothing was guaranteed. But Evan knew one thing: he would not fail now. Not when the home of Syra and Lyra was so close, and not when the promise to keep them safe had carried them through every danger.